And now on Who's Views, it's time for the latest headlines with JT and the Whotastic panel.
Well, hello, Who viewers. Welcome back to Who's Views, and this is Headlines. Have you heard? Well, for several years now, we have had to endure the cries of the overnights don't matter. The overnights don't matter, especially when it comes to our show and things like the ratings games. I've had that. You've had that. We've all heard it, haven't we? It's the consolidated that matter. It's only the consolidated that matter. Well, how many people have got eggs on their faces today because the Consolidateds are in and they're not good? And we're going to be talking about it in this special edition of Headlines, which we put together right at the very last minute for you. But there you go. There is one person, of course, that knows all about this because he's so good with all the figures. It's our very own keeper of the scores from Who's Master. It's our ratings analyst expert. It's Bedwia. Hello to you.
Hello, GT.
Oh, listen, thank you so much for coming to join me and the Who viewers. Good evening to everybody that's in the chat. We will come to you as we go through the show, but let's crack on straight away because this is big news. And I have to say, Bedwia, I wasn't expecting this.
No, neither was I. And I've got into the habit every Monday of, refreshing the BARB's website and waiting to see what the latest numbers are. And today when I did it, and had to keep scrolling to find Doctor Who, it suddenly dawned on me that, oh, this is bad. This is bad, and we will go through why it's actually the worst.
Yes, this isn't just bad. This is words. I mean, there aren't words to explain. I mean, let's start with this. I mean, you were saying that you were going through the BARB data, the British Audience Recording Bureau. You were going through all this. And this is what you found, wasn't it? Now, look at it there. Point it out to us, because you might need a magnifying scope, everybody, to see this here.
Yeah, so once you get through all the Emmerdales and the EastEnders and the one-off Have I Got News For You, it's Doctor Who's actually lying 24th in the chart.
Can you see it there, everybody? Wow.
Yeah. So, for a bit of context, this week had 6 episodes of Britain's Got Talent. So 6 of the top 10 in this chart are episode of Britain's Got Talent. But even if you take off, another 5, it's still quite a long way down. Someone pointed out to me that if you, take off the multiples, it is the 8th most watched show for that week. When you take off, as I say, multiple editions of.
And let's just clarify here as well, because we haven't done this. This is Dot and Bubble we're talking about, isn't it? This is the Consolidated for Dot and Bubble, not Rogue, but Dot and Bubble.
No, so this is yeah. So this is all the people that watched it from midnight to overnight transmission, and then everyone who watched it after the transmission on BBC One, either by recording it and watching it again or streaming it on iPlayer on whatever they call it, 4-screen, the various devices that are available to do that.
Yeah. So let's have a look at that and just tell us how many Consolidated Doctor Who got, Bedwia.
So in total, the number we've got is 3,383,000.
Consider my flabber gasted. I mean, what do you think about this, Paul?
Well, I still can't believe Bedwia's not watched the show yet. Anyway, he's not suffering, is he? No.
No, that's why the ratings are so low, because I haven't watched it over and over again.
But even still, we know that a lot of them are claiming on the social media to be watching it over and over again. So if the diehard, I mean, it just shows you how small that minority that they're pandering to at BBC Studios and Bad Wolf and RTD in particular is. Because even if they are doing what they're saying they're doing on social media and going back and watching it, I've watched it 20 times or something like that, it's not having an impact at all. This is Dot and Bubble we were talking about. And it's come in at the lowest correct me if I'm wrong, everybody, the lowest Doctor Who episode ever.
Yeah, we'll see a few charts as we go through that prove that and slightly disprove that.
Oh, right. Well, that's good.
Depends on how you look at it. But yeah, in terms of the +7 number post 2005, it is the lowest ever. And I genuinely, I did not expect it to drop below 3.5 million over 7.
What we're used to, of course, is we're used to seeing an increase. Now we have seen an increase because it was 2 point something, wasn't it, for Dot and Bubble? So this is an increase, but not the huge increase that they would say. We've got good evening to everybody in the chat. We've got a question here from Just Jordan for you as well here. So this is the total iPlayer views, etc., but the overnights. It's not the overnights, it's the consolidated, isn't it, Bedwir?
Yeah, so this is everyone who watched it live on BBC One, everyone who watched it on iPlayer before it was shown on BBC One, everyone who watched it on the iPlayer after it was shown on BBC One, plus those who recorded it on their digital box of choice and watched it at some point over those 7 days. Or, as I say, streamed it via iPlayer. So it's only UK, not talking about Disney Plus. No one knows what the hell the Disney Plus numbers are. Probably never will. This is just UK.
Yeah, this is
the original figures, the 2 million odd that they had, have just almost doubled by people watching it twice. Really.
That's right, because Dot and Bubble got an overnight rating, if you remember, of 2.12.
Yeah,
2.12, and that's gone down for Rogue to 2.11. So 2.12, and then, as Bedweir has pointed out, with the consolidated and with it all together from the actual proper, what we've got here, you know, the BARB, it's not increased dramatically at all. 3,383. I mean,
So
wow.
I mean, we'll break these numbers down a little bit and you try and use some other charts to illustrate this. But it wasn't the lowest overnight we've had so far, but it is unfortunately the lowest increase that we have seen. Okay. So in terms of raw numbers, the increase from overnight to +7 has been the lowest so far.
And it's amazing, all this, isn't it? We've got lots of people in the chat with us as usual. Thank you very much for joining us all. Graham is saying to us, I love Bedweir's analysis every week. It's well interesting. We'll wait till you see this one. We're going to come to everything.
It's fantastic. It's fascinating, isn't it? It's great. It's lovely.
He's done some more graphics for us this afternoon as well, so we're going to come to those in a minute. Divining Dragon is saying, what a drop. Lisa is with us as well, saying, wow, this is going to make me so happy. We are quite perverse here, isn't it? You're a legend, according to Doug.
Oh,
that's lovely, isn't it? That's nice. And yes, we've got here as well. Neville is saying we weren't expecting it either, Jay. To be honest, I don't think any of us were. I think we were all. Hello to Edward as well. I think we were all expecting a big increase, but this shows just the power of word of mouth, really.
I don't think Cardiff were expecting this either, to be honest. But they
probably not.
Well, no, that's it. Yeah. Daz Blue is saying to us here, it's bad, yet still higher than I expect. Wait till we get till next week, says Domgo. Thanks for that one. And Doug is also saying to us here, is it wrong that I'm a bit happy this is bad? Maybe we'll see some change for the better. It's too late. Season 2 is in the can. So if there's going to be any change... They
can't afford to refilm the entire season, can they? Let's be honest.
No. And Disney money, of course, won't cover a third series as we know at the moment, because it covers so many episodes, which was 24, 26, which is done with the Sea Devil thing, or the spin-off thing. That's it done. That's it spent and budgeted for. So what you're actually looking for is this is going to be terrible next year. And if there are going to be changes, it's going to be for the 2026 season. But as we know on this show, on this channel, nothing can stop him now, you know, because that's what he's gone and said. I can't see any. I think it's too late, personally.
Can I ask you a question before we dive more into the figures? When I was a fan in the 80s, I remember them being quite low during trial and then into season 24, 25, 26.
Yeah.
And I always thought at that point it was just the fans who were watching. So who's watching now? It's so low. Even the fans are leaving it. That's quite scary. So.
Yeah. Well, we don't know. Well, we're watching it for one thing, aren't we? And some of our people,
but that doesn't really count.
We're watching it. It does. We're watching it, and we're pushing up that figure because we're there to critique it. But other people will be as well. But there is. It does show that there is a minority of the audience they're pandering to and want. The minority is there. I'd say around about 2 million of them.
Well, that's it. And what's
then
going
they
to
watch
take
it
that
again.
to drop further? What's going to make them leave if they're not happy with it?
Nothing. I can't see
Yeah.
that. I can't see anything make that, because they're being preached to by the supreme Serverland type leader. They're not going to, I think it'll.
I have to
I
say,
think it'll
Russell would
further
love that.
down.
I'm sure that you describe him as Serverland. I'm sure.
Oh, we'd love that with his big red dresses in the hair. Listen, Derek Hart is saying to us, RTD gone, OTT, and Time have a non-fan as a showrunner. Don't have this. We don't have this with Star Trek. I was assuming Star Trek had its own problems, though, Derek. To be quite honest. Let's have a look what else we got. Scottish Davros is saying to us here, not watching it does wonder for your blood pressure. Yeah, I know. I spent years not watching the thing and didn't miss it at all. What else we got? Yes, thank you, everybody. Kirsty is in the chat. Thank you, Kirsty. Nice to see you. I'm not sure if Garbage is in there as well, but thank you both if you're for looking out for everybody in the chat. Yeah, Garbage is in there as well. So thank you both very much for joining us. Talons of Wen Chang is there as well. So under 2 million for the overnight of next week's episode and under 3 million for the Consolidated of Rogue.
Well, we shall see. The overnight for Rogue, as we mentioned at the top, was 10,000 under.
Yes.
And
it went to 2.11.
Yeah. And given the reaction that we've seen on social media and the sort of reviews that have gone out, maybe we are looking at the same level of increase.
Yeah, absolutely. Doug is
we might be back next Monday. We might be back next Monday.
We might be back next Monday, yeah, because that's what we do. I was an optimist, says Doug, about this new series. Yes, you were, weren't you? You were really hoping out for it. I think most of us were as well. We may have been on the fence, but we were generally wanting Ncuti to work and Russell's new vision to work. But increasingly, as we got to this launch, I think we will. I was certainly going, oh, I don't know about this. But Doug is saying, I was an optimist about this new series, but my heart is broken. I'm sorry, but they deserve this failure. Alienate fans and the general public, and this is what you get. And the amazing thing about this is, as I said at the top of the show, we've had all this for years and years and years. We've had the consolidators matter. The consolidator is the only thing you should be looking at. I wonder what the reaction is going to be this week when we start turning around and going, no. Well, there's your consolidated. Now justify your bizarre arguments, please.
Yeah, and one of the reasons I really wanted to have a look at the numbers as someone who wasn't watching it and, was fairly neutral, was that I wanted to look at the numbers neutrally as well, because we've highlighted certain websites who have interpreted the numbers in a very positive way, shall we say?
So diplomatic.
There's a lot of chat about just anyone who reports the numbers in a negative way is just ists and phobes and all that sort of, and just against the show. And generally, like I much like the previous comment, wanted the show to do well. If people are watching it and loving it, great. It's not for me, that's fine. Yeah, I'm okay with that. But as you mentioned, the 80s, Paul, we go back to that period where the numbers weren't very good and it eventually stopped. And I don't want to see Doctor Who stop. I want it to be made every year, and I want new generations to have a Doctor that they relate to. And with these numbers, it's proving that it's not got an audience. And the reason we're highlighting it is because we're anticipating bad news.
But you can call it bad news. I'll be laughing on its grave in a red dress, as I said last night, quite frankly, because it deserves it. Because what it done is, as lots of our Who viewers are saying in the chat, it told us to bugger off, and that's what they did.
We've done it. Yeah,
with Jodie Whittaker's, it's the same. But this is amazing. This is getting less than Chibnall's. Because the rot set in there and then, 2017, 2018, the rot set in and it's just deteriorated, and the pattern increases now, isn't it? We're going to come to Bedweir's analysis in a second and all the lovely hard work he's done. Graham is saying to us, 2 of my mates watched the first 2 of this series and then totally gave up and genuinely couldn't believe how bad it was. That's what gets me about this, Bedweir, as well. I don't think bad Doctor Who should be on. I want it to be good Doctor Who, that people go, oh yeah, that's a cracking series. That I don't watch it all the time, but when I dip in, I'm entertained. I'd rather that was there, rather than going, oh, not even the fans like the show. That's embarrassing.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I've got a friend who texted me the other day. They're saying, I've got 2 episodes of Doctor Who still to watch, and you know what? I can't be bothered. and he's been a fan since the 70s. So that's very telling, don't you
We're
think?
getting a lot of that. If you look at some
Yeah,
of our
yeah.
comments as well underneath the shows that we do and our reviews for Who's Views Reviews, you'll see an awful lot. We're all in the same boat, I think, here on this channel. Pikehead1, nice to see you. Welcome to Who's Views. Touching grass is better than touching cloth. Well, depends whose
I'm sure
cloth
Phil was
here.
like that. It's very, very
Yeah.
reference to Phil there. Yeah.
Yeah, we've got lots of comments coming through on this as well. So thank you very much. Keep them all coming, everybody. So it's nice to see you all. Hello, Sty Hoodman. And Matthew Burrows is saying to us, what if the Sea Devil spin-off gets better ratings than the main show? Now, that depends. We're hearing rumors about that particular thing, Matt. Better not say anything at the moment. Might sneak it in at some point. I'm trying to get clarification because it's so clamped down. But I have heard some rumors about what it could possibly entail, and it might not be what you're expecting as to how it's going to be transmitted. Right. So
Say no more. Candid.
Yes. Right. So let's carry on with this now. So, Bedouin, tell me where you would like to go. Andy, hello. Cancelled in '89 with better ratings than this.
Well, we're looking to that. We're looking to that.
And we've got Owly0014. Hello again. Nice to see you. People are watching it with morbid curiosity. Listen, the British public are not watching this. This is now proved. The British audience is gone. This is generally just what's left of the Doctor Who fan base. And as you can see there, it's only getting 2 overnight, 3 because people will rewatch it. That's all that's left of the fan base. The rest of them have gone off to touch grass, polish their collection, and probably spend the money on something else, probably like Swifty tickets. Go Vidal, it's nice to see you because the
money well spent,
time difference. Yeah, nice to see you, Go Vidal. The general audience is gone. Only the only viewers are Doctor Who admirers and a minority of critics, and those who do love the new Roman fantasy Doctor Who. Yeah. And can you imagine if we weren't watching it for this show? Yes, quite easily. It wouldn't.
It would be genuinely fascinating if all the reviewers on the Tube of Who just didn't watch the last episode. How that might impact things.
Yeah, Daniel Wright is saying, yeah, hello Daniel. I think 2 million is the bottom. The only ones left will watch it regardless. Yeah, you're right on that one. Yeah,
that's kind of one of the things I wanted to work out. Really, was what is Doctor Who's bottom, as it were.
After this week's episode, let's not go there.
But what is the consistent figure that we get to of fans who are going to watch it every week, no matter what? But the problem is, it keeps trickling down a little bit more. So
yeah,
I haven't worked that number out yet.
No, but do you know what? We're going to be finding out sooner rather than later. Next year will be the real test as well, won't it? And Christmas as well on the big day itself. Hello, Ken. You stopped watching after the terrible Tennant specials. I'm not surprised.
Lucky you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's not an attack. Lincoln Predatory. Oh, right. I'm not going to read that because I don't know what that's about. But yeah, let's just get rid of that one there. Sorry about that. I don't know what that one's about. I'm not going to go into that one. But there we go. All right, then. So let's go back to Bedouin. Right. So what's this?
Okay. So this is a breakdown of a combination. The blue sections are the overnight numbers. So we now have those up until Rogue. And we can see that Boom still the lowest. So Rogue did get higher than Boom's overnight figures. And then the green sections are the difference or the additional numbers added to that overnight to get what our final figure is. So as we've discussed today, Dot and Bubbles is 3.8 million. So we can see from this that, first of all, the overnights really matter, because the bulk of your consolidated, your +7 number, is largely made up of that overnight rating. We can also see that Dot and Bubble, that increase of only 1.26 million, is the lowest that we've seen of the season so far. So they had been fairly consistent. 1.44 to 1.54 is fairly consistent. However, that is a clear drop off of people that are engaging with it either before and after transmission.
Yeah.
So that's a really big drop, having been relatively consistent, as I say, between 100,000 people. So to drop to 1.26. So if you put it back up, basically,
Bear with me.
so the number that we've got to today, that increase is about a 60% increase. Unfortunately, it's 60% of a fairly small number, as we saw in 2.12. And then collectively, the total means that only 37% of that 3.38 million total are those who didn't watch it live. So again, it just reinforces the fact that the bulk of your audience is watching it on BBC One. And if that number's low, it has a significant impact.
And the number is low.
Yeah.
The number is very low. We were saying on our reviews show just last night, and we also mentioned it, I think, when you were with us on Headlines on Friday, 10 short years ago, this sort of number for a BBC One show would mean instant transfer to BBC Two. So there's double standards to play again, isn't it?
It's in a prime slot on a Saturday night. And whether people that, watch it afterwards, having missed original transmission, are based on, word of mouth or, all that sort of stuff, the reviews that are going out, nothing's building that desire from the public to go and watch it after it's been transmitted. In fact, we've seen the reverse happen here because, as I mentioned, it's the lowest increase to a consolidated number we've seen so far. So, we don't take delight in this. It just proves some of the points that we've made in the reviews that you guys have done, that there are issues and that it, if not enough people are engaging with it, it really highlights the deterioration in quality. If something is really good, loads of people are going to watch it.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
When you get the 28-day figures, though, based on what you got for the specials and then the Christmas one, they have kind of gone up a bit. They seem to have been quite exaggerated from the specials and the Christmas, but they were quite high, weren't they, allegedly?
Yeah. I did have a look earlier to see if I could find 28-day figures for, because we'll obviously have the first week now. The Devil's Cord and Space Babies, but I haven't been able to find those.
That's interesting, isn't it?
I do recall Doctor Who magazine was
down the back of the sofa in Cardiff somewhere.
It looked very low. But yeah, I think Doctor Who magazine was almost publishing those as an exclusive.
Right. Well,
I might be wrong on that. I apologize to Doctor Who magazine if that is incorrect. But
whatever happened, I mean, we'll just have to keep looking for them, and then we can put them into a future show on that, can't we? Really, and we can use all the information that we've got. That's not really an issue.
The point I was going to make with that was before you mentioned that comment was if that's what they're basing it on in terms of their, I know we're basing it on overnights, but if they're basing their figures on 28 days. And that looks great to them, and they get 7-8 million. Does that not mean to them it's succeeding? So therefore, it will continue. That's the thing,
Well, this is the thing. The 28-day number might be the thing that is the difference between cancellation and not. But it depending on where they come from. Now, as JT put up the first slide, which is direct from the BARB.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, I couldn't find the 28-day number on their website. If it comes from another source, we've got to question the accuracy. BARB are the standard bearers. That's why we're using their numbers to talk about the +7s.
Yes.
So we'll wait and see what the 28-day number says, but even then it'll probably be misquoted because
the fact is,
that scene in the Bastard of Death, how many beans make 5? No reply. That's it.
Well, yeah. So, the fact is, you're saying there that the BARB, the BARB ratings are what everybody's been going to. Now that was the one that they were the ratings that everybody who's bless them defending this show use. You've got to look at the Consolidateds, but the fact is the Consolidateds now are dire. They're the lowest it's been. This has been a terrible series for a version of Doctor Who. It has been rejected by the British public. It has been rejected by millions of fans, not just in the UK but around the world. It's a failure. It's a flop, and it's just going to continue. So it doesn't matter really what the spin is on this. They will look for a sort of spin.
Oh, they will.
Well, that's got to, they have to as well, because they have to have the propaganda element. They have to be able to have public facing because they've spent millions. A lot of investment has gone into this. So it doesn't matter now. They can say, oh no, Doctor Who's going to be back next year, because it is, because season 2's in the can. Doesn't mean it's going to be back the year after, although I think BBC Studios will insist that, as I've said before, there is at least some presence of Doctor Who to wind it all up if they decide to pull the can. Or they might actually, and I doubt this will happen, they might just decide to do what they allegedly did in the Chibnall era and replace everybody and have a couple of years off. Who knows? But from my point of view, I think that'd be a big mistake, because it's obviously tired. It's obviously lost all of its audience, and it's obviously not wanted anymore. That's how I see this.
I mean, I would counter that in terms of your creative people. So your technical guys, in production terms, I don't, those guys work very hard. I think the issue is with the fiction. And that's where it's
totally. But you know what? That's what matters. And it's not just the fiction. It's the politics and the agendas of the people running it, which are inserted into that fiction. So we've said on the review shows, I admire very much everybody that's working on this show, because they're obviously working very hard and working their hearts out with passion and joy on this show. But the agenda overruns that. So even though, everything looks quite nice, apart from my point of view, the filming, I don't think that actually gels well. I think you need to look at that. But the rest of it looks great. But it's just not hitting home. And that's because of poor scripts, poor editorial decisions, poor production planning decisions, poor showrunner, everything. They've got it wrong from the top. And that's the only thing. That's these people, the normal people, will actually suffer for it.
Well, I felt during the Chibnall era, a lot of Chibnall scripts felt like first drafts. There was not a lot of work done.
It's the same here, isn't it?
And I think it feels the same with some Russell stuff. It's like, I've done 14 episodes, here you go, and I did them in an afternoon, like Ernie Wise. It's about that.
Here's the Doctor Who's what I wrote. Yeah,
exactly.
Hello to Paul Sean, he's with us. Just a quick hello. I take it the opinion on the Mighty Who is pretty low at the moment. Personally, I'm sad. I think we are all sort of sad.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it comes out, because we look at this sort of stuff, like this awful episode that was on just this very weekend, Rogue, Dot and Bubble, terrible. It all has been very dire. The publicity surrounding it hasn't been that good, apart from the twists of the media, which we're going to be looking at as well in the headlines coming up soon. But it hasn't hit. People are just not interested in it. And they did tell the fans to go, as we said, and we have gone. A lot of them have gone. So I think we're all sad, Paul. I think we're all really sad about it.
Yeah.
But I know for as I say that, I would rather have absolutely brilliant, stonking sci-fi Doctor Who, which is accessible to anybody, rather than this version, which is BS. It's just absolute propaganda for a cult, the TQ cult especially.
Yeah.
Terrified Monk is saying to us here, I know I've seen some of it as a kid on PBS, but I never really sat down and watched it as an adult. That's talking about the original series. Okay, you really have to go and look at that, because right now the original series is just absolutely blinding in every way, in my opinion.
Well, even episodes that people consider to be clunkers look like masterpieces in comparison to this rubbish.
Yeah, exactly.
That's subjective, obviously, but that's my opinion.
We've got Graham here saying telling loyal fans to go was just ridiculous and hugely offensive, and it's still happening, because you've got the people that like this era telling people, if you don't like, don't watch. If you don't like, don't watch. And what do they do? Okay, then, and they switch off. And that doesn't help. No Doctor Who fan should ever be telling people that the series is so bad, don't watch it, or it's not your thing, because it should be for everybody. And it isn't. And this is proving it. Saint194, welcome to Who's Views. It's nice to see you. Hello. Compare Doctor Who now to Series 1 with Eccleston. Night and day difference.
Oh, God, yeah. Just look at Dalek, for instance. What a cracker episode that was in comparison to this. It is completely different.
Yeah.
The numbers were very different then as well. If
you
want to get into that.
Well, I mean, they changed the system, didn't they? To try and the reason they changed the system as well, of course, was to try and uphold the numbers for the shows, because they did start to see things coming down. So they tried to. It hasn't worked. BARB. This system doesn't work.
Yeah,
cooking the books doesn't work either, does it? Let's be honest.
I'll always say it certainly doesn't work when you've got a show like Doctor Who with a massive, a once massive fan base, some of whom are fanatical to the point of delusion, who will go back, like I've said before, and go back and watch it over and over and over and over, and then go on to something like X or the Book of Face and say, I've watched it 22 times. Who else is up to this? It drives me mad. It doesn't work when you've got that. You don't get to go back and watch anything else.
I've not done it with new Who, but I've certainly done it with classic Who. I can't tell you many times I've watched Horror of Fang Rock, for instance. I've watched it to death, but that's a good episode.
That's why we've all said on this show, isn't it? We would love to see the iPlayer figures now for the original Doctor Who, because some of those series will be up through the roof. Richard is saying any new showrunner will stay milky the same way. It's ruined now and it's not salvageable. I'm afraid. I know what you mean there, because the show business is working all the same way to the same sort of, let's fight the phobes, the ists and the ots, of all of which are in their head, by the way, because, we're science fiction fans. We don't have any of that nonsense. But yeah, that's why I would say, Richard, if they're going to finish it, it needs to be gone for a long while until society and show business especially gets off its bloody high horse. I'm sad that RTD desecrated my favorite character in show, says Domgo. Yeah, that's it. All right, so we'll move on. Thank you very much for all your comments. Keep it all coming. Play nicely.
I think there's more desecration to come, though, sadly, I think.
Yeah, play nicely in the chat, please. That's all I'm going to say there. I've seen a couple of things. Knock it off. Play nicely. Okay, so where are we going to now? Bedouin, which one do you want to go to now of your lovely graphics?
One of the chart ones. Go on. There we go. Right. So this is our +7 ratings for everything post 2005. And as you can clearly see, Dot and Bubble is now the lowest. So when we mentioned we've hit a low, this is the absolute lowest Doctor Who has hit for a +7 rating since 2005.
So the Sea Devils will be happy.
Yeah, I'm going to say I'm surprised that's been beaten. That's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, same. I did not expect that particularly low number to have been beaten even in this series, but there it is in black and white.
And it's proven these are not us making this up. This isn't Bedouin messing around with a crayon. These are official.
There's a bit of that. I'm sure there's a wee bit of that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, the yellow bit.
These are the official figures as registered by the official United Kingdom BARB rating system. These are official. This was what will get reported to BBC Studios, the BBC, and Bad Wolf.
Yeah, and so you can see from that the ones I've highlighted in yellow, the 5 +7s that we have so far, they are the bottom 6.
And they're all from this year.
Yeah.
See the column on the far right, is that the chart position?
Yeah, so the chart.
Yeah.
So the first slide that we had.
The Dot and Bubble was 24 in the chart. Is that right?
Down in 24. And that's consistent with Legend of the Sea Devils. And again, you can see how Space Babies, was at 10, and we had a couple at 12. So it was higher up the chart, and obviously chart positions will vary depending on what else is on that week. As I mentioned, Dot and Bubble was up against 6 episodes of Britain's Got Talent that week, and that is consistently a ratings winner. But and I get that their ratings are down as well. Like TV audience rate numbers are just down generally. That's just fact.
Because it's all crap.
Yeah.
That's what I think. I mean, if you look at Mr. Bates versus the Post Office, which I'm always talking about, that was huge because people wanted to see it. If people want to watch something, and I'll say this consistently, if people want to go and watch something, if they're interested in it, they'll sit down on the night and they'll watch it live. Everything else now, I mean, Britain's Got Talent's been going for 450 years as well. I know the spin-offs it generated. People are fed up with it. Apart from children, it's now become very cheap, easy children's television. Let's face it.
I think the soaps as well, they've really done really badly. They were really high figures, weren't they, in the past? And now they've gone down quite considerably, haven't they, compared to the 18 million of...
Yeah,
it looks like they're still in the top 10 as well as this. I mean, there's Emmerdale. I mean, the problem we've got with the soaps is, aren't they on every single day now?
That's the problem. It's oversaturation, isn't it? Really, it's like Big Finish.
Yeah, and also because they're taking half an hour of a time slot every single night, you can't get anything else in.
Yeah,
no, but so I get the argument. Some people make us, there's fewer people watching television across the board. That is why I've brought in the chart position into this particular category because, you're absolutely right. The soap numbers are down. We compared, the 80s, late 80s when Doctor Who was direct competition, and they were getting over 10, 15, nearly up to 20 million, depending on what was going on the cobbles, etc.
Yes,
If you're
exactly.
sorry. But it's, you know, Doctor Who would still usually hold its own within the chart.
Yeah.
Because enough people were watching it in the context of the other shows that were on, and because it's, you know, as I pointed out, we had that initial 10 and 12 when interest in the series was high. It was a new series, new Doctor, all that sort of stuff. But now it's starting to drop down the ratings chart, and it is, it's just fact. You know, if it's at 24, okay, busy week and whatever. The reason I highlighted the chart as well was because we've now, at the end of this week, got the football. The European Championships is about to kick off. Scotland, Germany starts, you know, that's going to do a big number. England are on the Sunday. That's going to do it. You know, those football matches, which are going to be, you're not going to be able to, you know, hide for all the football that's going to be on in the next, you know, 6 weeks or so. Those numbers are going to hit Doctor Who in the chart as well.
Yeah,
they just are. So, you know, it's really difficult to put positives on any of this. I'm really sorry.
I mean, they've started promoting the finale now, and I've seen a trailer already.
All right,
but no one's interested. No one's like it's whether you think the trailer looks exciting or not. No one's invested in the characters anymore. That's the problem.
But do you know the other thing about that though is the other side of the argument about this is simply because if the audience is down, it means that they're not watching trailers as well because they're not sitting in front of the television watching the trailers.
Yeah,
that's the other thing. So they're not going to see a trailer. Doctor Who fans will see trailers more. As Terrified Monk is saying to us here, I watch more YouTube than television these days. And I think that works. I mean, I'm the same Terrified Monk. I don't really watch television because I think it's a pile of poo. And this version of Doctor Who is actually burning me out on that one. So I get some stuff. But, you know, that we're also dealing with a younger generation. I'm not talking 20 or something here. I'm talking the kids. I'm talking 5, 6, 7, 10s, 11s. Everything's on here. You see them in restaurants and coffee shops watching a television show on there. And it's all usually from YouTube. Terrified Monk is also saying to us here, dumb American here, what are the audience appreciation indexes? Well, at the moment,
who knows?
None of us know. None of us know. The audience appreciation index is in a nutshell, because it's quite complicated and very out of date in my liking, is when basically the British audience give feedback from what used to be, I think it's still a grid star rating, on how good they think the show they've watched is. It's as simple as that. So they'll get asked a series of questions, what about points. What did you think of this character? What did you think of that character? What did you think of the way they got out of that situation? What did you think of that? What did you think of the music? And it's very outdated because they're prompting you with the information they want, or they used to do. They're getting answers to certain elements. And
the
then
first question is, sorry, Dr. What?
Yeah. And then what they do is they collate all the responses they get, which are selected as well. It's not from everybody, but it's selected. And then they turn it into a percentage. But it's going to be very, very low here because there's only about 3 million people overnight. And I reckon 1 million of that will be people that have watched it already on the iPlayer or BBC One screening.
You were saying about people not watching, and if a different generation's watching or not watching, they're not buying merchandise. So I've said many times before, and they've got advertised on Amazon and other suppliers for season 1, $49.99 on Blu-ray. So if we are not watching and not buying it, we're going to buy the collection sets, obviously, but not this. So who's buying these? Physical media copies, and no one's buying them, so they're not going to sell, are they?
Well, that's the other thing that these figures, and I know this from my experience in the past, these figures will frighten the license holders. I'm not talking license fee holders, I'm talking license holders here for Doctor Who merchandise, people that went to the BBC studios and negotiated to get a license to produce Doctor Who merchandise. We've seen it before, and this is they're going to go, oh, we've just invested so many millions into this product. Who the hell's going to buy it? So that does have an effect, not just on the show, and it's got an effect on where they've got to make money. And of course, where they've got to make money is merchandise. That's a big thing. I want to say hello to Daryl, who's joining us. Hello, Daryl. BBC wanted to reinvigorate Saturday evenings in 2005. 19 years on, it's become stale and stagnant. People have drifted away from TV because it's not very good. I totally agree with that. And De Pablo is saying, I shared many years with my daughter sharing this great piece of sci-fi, and now it's gone.
Just to add on Daryl's point, Gladiators did reasonably well. The Wheel, which RTD was, celebrity enough to feature on,
that was embarrassing.
Also does fairly well. We mentioned Britain's Got Talent and stuff like that. There are shows that do draw in an audience. It's obviously not a massive audience, but they are, I agree, very few and far between these days. It's more event television that actually gets you a big number, and
Doctor Who isn't that anymore, is it? And the big test, of course, will be with this so-called two-part finale that they seem to be not as excited as I expected them to be. We'll know from tomorrow onwards how excited they are. If Paul's saying that the trailers will come on, because that's the thing that they expected everybody to join it. This is certainly not the big hit I think they expected it to be. Of course, we're always going to get a certain element of fandom as well that are diehard enough to actually disclaim anything that's factual. And one of them's joining us this evening in the chat. It's Phil. Hello, Phil. Phil Jones is here with us. Can these three stop speaking for all of us? There are plenty of reactors that don't watch middle-aged men moaning about sci-fi. Doctor Who is doing fine. So people like Phil, who obviously always, can't even see the reality of the facts, probably wondering about what pronouns he's going to be using today. Phil, if you don't like it, don't watch the show. Because these are facts.
That's what they say to us, isn't it?
If you don't like, exactly. If you don't like the facts, the proof that has come from the official British BARB rating system, then we're not the ones that are deluded, my friend. And if you don't like what we're saying, don't watch the show.
Can we say that we're not speaking for everyone? We're speaking for ourselves. So that's our opinion, which we're allowed.
But we are dealing with facts. Yeah. We are dealing with actual physical facts that are produced and were published today. And whether Phil likes it or not, Doctor Who is not doing fine. It's in the toilet.
And we've said that it's okay to like Doctor Who. If you want to like it, that's perfectly fine. That's your choice. We're not stopping you from watching it. That's not a problem.
But don't come onto my show, Phil, and talk about my friends here on this show or anybody else by saying middle-aged men moaning. How dare you, you ageist.
That makes me feel quite young. That's quite nice, actually. I quite like that. Yes.
Well, this room. If you don't like it, you don't have to watch the show. Get off.
No, thank you for your comment. In response, I'm not moaning about the sci-fi because I haven't watched the damn show. I'm trying to present the numbers in as neutral way as possible, but I am raising concerns because of the numbers that I'm reporting.
And they are factual report. It's people like him though. They could report back, oh, there's 300 people, and he'll still come back saying, oh no, it's fine, everything's fine, because they're so desperate now. They can't imagine a life without the show. It's going to happen.
Well, do you remember we used to get an announcement every year at the end of a season saying Doctor will be back next autumn or January, blah, blah, blah. And that's what they're expecting. There'll be nothing for years and years when it gets cancelled, be like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Anyway.
This might not be a James Bond will return kind of moment. But,
it's not going to be. I mean, as I say, it's going to be back next year. We know that. It'll be back at Christmas. It'll be back next year. And I think there's going to be a Christmas special already for the year after as well, which will be 25, 26 is what we're going to know about sooner rather than later. That's going to happen anytime now. And I'm sure there are boardroom decisions going on. As Domgo is saying here, though, there's no question Doctor Who has lost its Saturday night spot. It'll never get it back. They really need to do something about it, don't they?
Yeah,
all right, so we'll move on.
That's actually a point, actually. Can I just interrupt there a minute?
Yeah.
With the figures, they said that the Jodie figures, they were all Sunday nights, weren't they?
Oh, of course, I'd forgotten about that. They moved it to Sunday, didn't they?
Whether that makes a difference to the audience or not, possibly not.
I don't think so, because even that era was going down every week. This is a continuation. Yeah. This is just a sheer continuation. It started in Capaldi's time, let's face it, but it wasn't this massive decrease. No, it was gentle. Yeah. This has been every week since Whittaker took over and they started broadcasting. There's been a decline, and now it's scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting to highlight that maybe they move it from Saturday to a midweek slot because, remember the
Mondays
Davison,
and Tuesdays. Yes.
Davison, Colin Baker era, because, people have been slightly unkind to the Great British Sewing Bee, which is fabulous. And
but only tongue in cheek.
Yeah, but
only tongue in cheek, because there's a place for it. It's massive. People love it. They
absolutely. My wife loves it. She watches all the time.
Exactly, and it's nice. You don't have to necessarily on something like that be worried about having to turn around and explain to your kids why those two guys are kissing or what does that mean. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. But it is interesting if maybe it was to move from a Saturday night, whether those ratings would increase. The problem you'd have, as we mentioned earlier, the soaps are on constantly. So if you wanted to put, because you'd have to put Doctor Who on, in a 7 o'clock slot, which would mean moving the one show for a start, which they love because it's cheap and easy.
Very cheap.
I know you're biased, Midweir, on that one, but that's fine.
But then you've got Emmerdale and then Coronation Street after that. So unless you're pushing Doctor Who back to like 8 o'clock, it doesn't fit in anywhere else in the schedules other than Saturday or maybe.
The thing is now is that whatever people try to say about it, I genuinely believe from a business and production side of it, it's had its day. There's obviously no interest now that this happens with shows, and it's happened with Doctor Who before, and it'll happen again. There's an interest, there's not interest. There's a time when science fiction is big, there's a time when it isn't. Now, thanks to, I would say personally, a lot of fatigue because people have got disinterested with science fiction and fantasy because of the messages that are being pushed into it now. So the fans are bored with it, and then the public get on top of it and say, "Oh, not this again," and they switch it off. I think it has to be reworked. Personally, I think these ratings prove it. What that's going to mean in the future, I don't know, but I do think it needs a good few years off the air and given to people. I would rather it stay with the BBC. And we've discussed this before and gone back to its over. I think 30-minute episodes are norm. But as you're saying, Midweir, where would you put it? Personally, I would get rid of the one show several days a week and have it twice a week on a Monday or a Wednesday or wherever at 7 and give the one show a break for a couple of nights because that's also losing out fatigue because it's telling us.
I think you touched on the last program, but I think when Moffat took over and you got the first season of Matt Smith, it was particularly good, and then they started chopping and changing with half seasons and then moving the time slot and then having a year off and all that kind of stuff. The rot set in then.
I agree,
and I think part of the problem with New Who is the actors, they may be there for 5 years but spread over 5 years, 3 seasons, and they don't have the same impact as much as say John Pertwee and Tom Baker doing it for a very long time and being traditional slots. You know what I mean?
It's also very confusing for the public. Like that, I remember at the time being raged about that decision to split season 7 into 7A and 7B because I thought, hang on a minute, how does the public know the difference? And they didn't necessarily come back for it, because it was a case of when's it onwards, and they messed the format around a little bit. It looked a bit silly as well. Oh, I think you're right. Yeah. Hello to Merry Old Soul Gigglesmith. Nice to see you. Welcome to Who's Views. Russell T. Davis has written a soap opera worse than Hollyoaks and superglued the Doctor Who logo onto it. That's exactly what I think. He hasn't got the balls to go off and do another one.
The best part of the logo. That's all I can say. The beautiful logo.
I mean, just to sort of build on that, really, because you guys mentioned, what if you moved the one show to Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and you had a Tuesday and a Thursday, half hour at 7 o'clock, and did 2 30-minute episodes of Doctor Who? Could that be an idea that,
I think anything's up for trying. If you go back to 82...
soap opera, put it in a soap opera slot opposite another
that's the thing. But that'd be repeating history. Because back in 1982... Doctor Who, for the first time ever, got taken away for Peter Davison's first series from Saturday nights on BBC One, where it had been flagging, where it had. There's no denying that. Season 18, which saw Tom out, was brilliant for fans, but the public were tired, and that's proven right. So for Peter Davison's debut in 1982, they put it on in twice a week. And it was never necessarily on the same days or the same times for his whole 3 years, because guess what they were doing? And it came out years later that the BBC admitted this. They were trying to find a slot for EastEnders.
Yeah.
So they used Doctor Who as the tester. So it can work the other way around. But I certainly would not be frightened if I was a program controller to say, okay, we'll go back to the 30 minutes with Doctor Who. We'll have it on twice a week. So it's on for however many weeks it would be, 14, whatever it would be. And I would play around with it season by season, say, right, it didn't work at 7 o'clock, so I'll shift it to that day and put it on at 7:30 the year after. You've got to play with it. But the audience, if they want to find it, will find it. But that's the thing. The audience seems to know where Doctor Who is now, and they don't care.
But it really worked for season 19 being moved into the Monday, Tuesday, and the ratings were really doubled almost, weren't they? Which is
almost double, yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Lots of new people joining us in the chat as well. It's nice to see you. Hello to Ian. Hello, Ian. Nice to see you. Doctor Who needs a 1989 repeat, cancelled and off air. History, as I said on our review show last night, does seem to repeating itself. And God love her, we've got Bonnie coming into it. I've got Bonnie. I mean, I'm not saying anything because I love Bonnie. No, I love her. I love her. I love her. But why poor old Bonnie seems to get the dregs of this show, doesn't
well,
she?
I thought she was really good in the giggle, the amount of screen time she had. But I hope they just, they don't ruin her as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Talons is saying to us here, the one show is Blue Peter for adults. It's not even that good. Sorry. Medlin Funk is saying, I'm middle-aged, but I identify as 20. Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for
You're only
you.
as old as you feel. That's it, yeah. So.
Yes.
You can
There's
face
several
that
things
yourself, if you want to say.
Yeah, I can say several things to that, but I won't. We'll move on. The Middle Ages, healthy young days. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all very much for watching us. If you haven't already subscribed to us here at Who's Views, please do, and come and join us for all our shows. Not just headlines, but we are coming towards the end of our review shows as well. Every Sunday night live here, 8 o'clock in the evening UK time. We're having a great time. We're having a brilliant time here. Dark Hall, hello and welcome to you. Doctor Who will never be the same again. Yeah. And what else we got here? We've got Noodle Arms that's joining us as well in there, so that's fantastic. And Paul Ashworth is saying, I have Bonnie's autograph. So do I. And I love her. I love her too. She's one of the nicest showbiz women I've ever met in my life. She was so lovely. And my Rocker was just saying, I've just discovered you and just subscribed. Thank you. Well, thank you. We really appreciate that. Welcome to Who's Views. Yes, we're not always moaning. You can go back and look at our reviews of Doctor Who, proper Doctor Who, and we love it. You can see that. It's just I've said it before on this show, my Rocco, and everybody else that's new to us. We don't want to talk about all this stuff that they inject into the show, but they inject into the show, and I feel it's our responsibility to. And when it comes to the ratings of our beloved show, I feel it's our responsibility to do that as well, because it's news, and there's no denying the fact it's in the toilet.
Yeah.
So I'm going to move on.
We have seen these numbers interpreted in other ways, and seen them misquoted. Things like, Church on Ruby Road getting 10 million when it was more like 8.5. But
so where did that 10 million figure come from? If it was 8.5, out of interest.
Your guess is as good as mine.
From the ether somewhere, yes.
But it wasn't an official figure.
Yeah.
I mean, do you know what I'm looking forward to? As Doctor Who fans, we all know that eventually the truth is out. It might take 15, 20 years, but it does come out eventually. And with this whole version of 2005, these 20 years of some really good television in the early days, I'd say up to 2010, personally. And there's some really bad television in the last several years, some of which we're looking at now. There are lots of stories there that will one day come out. And as Doctor Who fans, for those of us that are around, and if you are interested, we will learn everything then. I am looking forward to all of us being here at Who's Views in 30 years' time with our Zimmer frames, talking about all the revelations. Oh, I remember saying that.
We'll just be spinning heads like dimensions in time. That'd be it,
Don't mention that crap again.
Sorry. It's my favorite episode.
Thank you, Domgo. This is the best Doctor Who channel, bar none. I'd agree with that. Such a great group of people. I mean, what do they mean? I mean, there are other Doctor Who channels. I don't know about that. And
I mean, you said that you spend a lot of time on YouTube. I spend a lot of time watching Who's Views.
I'm always watching that. I'm Joan Rivers. Gimme. And all the comedies that they tried to ban, carry-ons are on there now as well. The Hammer Horrors, we've got all this coming for you. Daryl is saying it's a beloved series for generations of British viewers. It could come back, but the public would need to miss it first. Exactly. It has to be the right time. They waited 15 years last time, possibly a little bit too long, but it worked, didn't it? Because they came back in their droves. The difference, Daryl, as I always say, is last time we were all there egging it on, encouraging it, petitioning for it to come back. We were a ready-made audience. It's not there now. It's not going to be there. No, that's the difference. And we will not support, we might not necessarily support any new version in such a short space of time. BS91 is saying, yes, tuned in. Thank you so much. Lovely to see that there. And Mark's Stuff personal page is saying the only thing that could save the show is a full reboot, maybe like the Peter Cushing movies. Seriously, just simple family fun. That's all we need. Good science fiction, which is accessible to anybody, no matter their walk of life, no matter their personal beliefs, no matter their political beliefs. It's got to be open to everybody. And that's what it isn't anymore. Better moaning than crying, says Paul Rathman. And Stuart Barham, nice to see you. Welcome to Who's Views. Haven't seen you for a while. I think you've been with us before, but TV shows have been asked for similar views. It's sad to say, as I've been a Doctor Who fan since Tom Baker. Oh, fabulous Tom! But shows have been asked for similar views. Yeah. It's true. It's true. We're in dodgy territory for Doctor Who now. I really think that. And the ratings are proving that as well, isn't it? I mean, without, to anybody who's outside the UK, I'd just like to say as well, without the British public, you have no show. You need to understand that this is not your Warner Brothers shows. This is not made for the fan shows. This is a British legendary television show. You cannot, unless you are British, you cannot understand how important this show is into our culture as well. Doctor Who has so many meanings in our everyday life. You hear some reference to the show in one way or another everywhere. Without the British public, no show. Simple as that.
Can you get Just Jordan's auntie's ghost on the case there? That sounds fabulous.
That's a great idea.
Just to read that out from Just Jordan, Dad and I are wondering if my auntie can haunt RTD in some sense. She'd have none of this, and she used to work for him. Ooh, please. Yes. I tell you what, we'll get a Ouija board and we'll all get together, shall we? Let's do that, Just Jordan and Just Jordan's dad. And hello, Angel DJ. How are you? I find you guys more interested in the Doctor Who, and I watched Doctor Who from the start. Did you? Up until Peter Davison. I could never grasp the best as the Doctor. That's fair enough, though, isn't it? Neither could Tom. But you watched from you watched from the beginning. You were a kid. Lovely to see you. Thank you for joining us. And just to let you know, some of your shows that you will remember from when you were little, we're going to be reviewing very shortly. We haven't finished with our tributes to William Russell, the late, lovely William Russell. We're going to be reviewing a Hartnell story when all this new stuff is out the way.
Yay.
We're going to be reviewing a Hartnell, and we are going back to Pertwee as well, because we've had some requests for Pertwee, and I think Third Doctor Ian is busting at the bit for Tom Pertwee. So make sure you subscribe and come and join us for those, because that will be brilliant. Now let's have a look at Andy. Andy is saying something here. They claimed 1.79 million streams for the Christmas special, but BARB shows it as only 230.
Yeah, so a few people have picked up on this at the chat and suggested that the number they used for streams of Doctor Who included were non-episode specific, shall we say?
How convenient.
Very convenient.
So bear in mind that the classic series dropped onto iPlayer in November of 2023. So those episodes were all on there, plus everything from 2005 onwards. And whether they rounded up all Doctor Who numbers and tried to pass it off as Church on Ruby
I know
Road.
what you're trying to say, Bedweir, yeah.
Well, whatever it is, it's dodgy dealing. Delboy would be very proud, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
Again,
sleight of hand. That's what
I can see Delboy down the market with this suitcase. Oi, do you want to buy some ratings, mate? Do you want to buy some ratings?
Yeah.
Again,
you want to buy some data?
This is why we're going off what the BARB have put on their website as the numbers.
Let's show that again, shall we? Because it is important. Thank you for that again. This is actually the BARB. There it is credited, and there is Doctor Who Dot and Bubble at 24 with just over 3.
So not to criticize other websites, but those that's the full number. We've seen already this series that sometimes these are rounded up to a 2 decimal place, so you sometimes end up with an extra 0.01 and stuff like that. So I know most of these things are reported to 2 decimal places in terms of millions, but sometimes that is a rounding up that gives a slightly better number than is accurate in reality.
It's very misleading, considering they're not that's not what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to be factual, isn't it? I mean, sometimes I do think of the Del Boy type character saying, all right, mate, if you push our numbers up by a decimal point, it's 20 quid for you. Steve Hindley is saying to us here, BBC spokesman, you may think that, but I couldn't possibly comment.
And
Classic
it's the same
line.
with so because the overnights are reported as a 2 decimal place as well. So that is a factor, when we're talking, 2.12 million, is that, 2.119 or 2.116, and obviously,
can I ask, Ben, have you got a badge for mathematical excellence? Just want to check on that.
I do have. I'm trying to.
It does, yeah.
Do I have one?
I thought you had.
Yeah. If I could pull that out right now. Yes, I do.
You do, superb.
There we go. There we go.
It's well deserved. It really is. Yeah.
Well, it is well deserved, and you've got. Let's go to this one. Tell us about this one.
Okay, so some people will make the argument that we shouldn't count the overnights alone, and the +7 ratings have to be, reflective of the way television has changed and the way people engage with television. So if you wanted to compare the pre-iPlayer era, so we're looking at every Doctor Who episode here from 1963 onwards and comparing it with our +7 ratings post 2005.
But that's I was going to say that's the thing though. If you're going to you're trying to measure it as it was there with just the overnights, because that's why you had to go on in the 80s.
Yeah.
If you factored in the video recordings of all that, then surely that would count another couple of million. So that means Battlefield would be 7 million or something.
Yeah,
that's important to talk about, because we've got to keep pointing this out to youngsters or new people to this. Video recordings didn't matter. We all recorded Doctor Who. I've still got all mine over there in a box of my original VHS of everything from 1984 onwards, basically, and the 5 Doctors from 83. But the video recordings were never included in the ratings, were they, Badria?
No. So we see Battlefield Part 1 at 3.1 million. That, as you say, is not reflective of anyone that recorded it. But for those that want to make the argument that, not everyone watches, it's not a fair comparison to compare overnights to overnights, and what we should really be comparing is +7s with overnights pre-2005. This is the chart. This is what it looks like, basically. So, unfortunately, Battlefield in this, situation is still at the bottom at 3.1, but now Dot and Bubble, even in this chart, is at second spot. And this is of 880 episodes of Doctor Who.
I can't believe we're up to that. Wow.
That's scary, isn't it? Yeah.
It's astonishing. But this is the lowest viewing figures, either +7 or overnights, if it's pre-2005, for Doctor Who over all that time. And you can see, Dot and Bubbles at number 2, Boom is at number 5, and The Devil's Cord is at 11.
I'd still love to hear, and it's never going to happen, but I would still love to know how the iPlayer has affected Battlefield and everything else going on there, because Sylvester's Doctor has come back into a sort of vogue, hasn't it? We know that people are saying youngsters have discovered Sylvester thanks to the box sets and stuff like that, the DVDs, the repeats, and I would love to know, is Battlefield still there? If they added on the iPlayer views, I don't think it would be. I think it would be higher.
Well, season 26 is my favorite season. Simple as that.
Exactly.
Love it. I love it.
Yeah. And we've got some Who viewers that are younger as well. They're in their 20s, and they've emailed us at whosviews1@gmail.com. And I'm impressed because they come back saying, I loved the Destroyer, or I loved the Hemovores. And I sit there going, I better go back and watch that again, because I was 19 when it first came out, and I was thinking, but I would love to know.
I know we say this a lot, but it's really sad that season 26 was cancelled when it was, and didn't get more McCoy and Sophie Aldred as the 7th Doctor and Ace, because there was so much potential there. The
potential was there, absolutely. So we've got that there. I don't think it's going to be long, though, before Battlefield moves up the chart.
Yeah. Well, you never know. But, you again, for the context of, where we come from in 1989, you've got Battlefield Part 1, Part 3, and Part 2, all in that, cluster. That's where the ratings were at that time. Again, it's opposite Coronation Street. Again, it doesn't factor in video recordings that
all the repeats.
Were a factor. But we are in that ballpark when the show was cancelled.
I mean, I can't remember offhand when Battlefield was repeated. It got something like 1 or 2 million, didn't it?
It was in 1993 for the 30th, wasn't it? I think. Yeah,
it was It was the 90s. Yeah. So I think it got 1 or 2 million. Yeah. So even if they did that, the equivalent to that, and added onto there, hang on a minute, that's going to go immediately up to 4 or even 5.
Yeah.
See, I mean, you can manipulate this. You see.
It is. You can't really compare the old series and the new series.
No, you can't. No, two totally different worlds. But, I mean, the only figure that mattered back in that world was your bums on seat that night. You didn't get any of this 7-day palaver. You didn't get any repeats. We didn't get the videos, as we say. It was who sat down on the night. And bearing in mind, it was against Corrie. Goodness me.
That's what I was going to say. If the BBC are basing the measurements on current Who with overnight and the 7 days and the catch-up, etc., then if in 1989 they'd actually calculated the video recordings, the BBC would have seen there was more of a market for it to continue. So they're going to do the same thing, aren't they? But perversely with the new series, aren't they? They're going to keep it going.
Now, do we?
Yeah. But then, it's... I get that, people don't want to make the comparison between the old and the new series, and that's why the chart before this was just post 2005 and Dot Bubbles at the bottom. So I'm trying to find positives, and there aren't any. So
well, at least you tried, and at least you look. Listen, we're getting a lot of people commenting in here. We've got Doug saying to us here, interesting to see War Games so low. That reinforces what an amazing job Pertwee did to revitalize Doctor Who, and then Tom sent it into the stratosphere. Yeah. Basically, that's what was happening. You see, this is what happens with Doctor Who. A fatigue comes in. So around about series 5, series 6, there was a fatigue in the original series. It got reinvested thanks to the brilliance of the team that came in for 1969 for 1970. That happened again at the end of Tom's mighty run of 7 years. And then it happened again a few short years later at the end of Sylvester's. We're actually seeing the same sort of pattern now. This isn't a show that can stay on like the soaps do. I haven't said that. The soaps are now seeing a fatigue again, aren't they? Like they did in the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s. So that's happened. This is the public. This is what happens. And only us as fans, even though the millions of us are fatigued, but the diehards, like the guests we had in the chat earlier, they can't see this. They don't understand it. So it's not, when you're older and wiser and middle-aged, you can actually see this being actually quite reasonable. This is what happens, even though in this case with Doctor Who, I really believe the potential was there to make it fabulous and bring us all back to support it, and they chose not to. Richard is saying to us here, Battlefield should have been 3 episodes while Ghostlight needed 4, and Sadeko 24 is saying the Destroyer in Battlefield looked great but sadly was dispatched too quickly. You're absolutely right.
Well, it was the Brigadier doing it, so he's really good, isn't he?
Naughty Brigadier. McCoy's era has aged so well, hasn't it, Graham? Well, we actually looked at Delta and the Bannermen recently as part of our Who's Views reviews. I actually really enjoyed it, didn't I? I couldn't believe it. It was really great. Cybermatch Strikes was saying to us here as well, season 25 is great. Matthew, all right, La, he's saying Stephen King's son wanted to write for Doctor Who, and the letter he got back from the BBC was disgusting. I remember something about that. And Paul Ashworth is saying Curse of Fenric and Survival of my favourite ever stories. Divining Dragon is saying to us here, young viewers remind us of why we love those classic stories to begin with. They see them with fresh eyes, and it's such a pleasure to share. I totally agree. So those young ones, as I say, DD, that email me here at Who's Views, at first I was surprised, and now I just really enjoy it because I just think, oh my God, they're finding those episodes and getting engaged in a good story and not being preached to in any way. Really,
it's when you see young fans at conventions or things like that, and they're all dressed like Colin or Sylvester, and they're about 6 or 7. That's wonderful. It really is, you know.
It really is. Raymond is saying to us here, I taped all of Doctor Who on VHS. Those recordings were never counted because it was impossible to do so. Quite right. Battlefield doesn't have the lowest ratings, up against Corrie and what's that? Statrid at 7:35. Coronation Street and whatever that is at 7:35. My memory's not.
Coronation Street started at.
Coronation starts at 7:35. Thank you.
No, Corrie started at 7:30. Then Doctor Who would start 5 minutes later.
It's true, yeah, and the BBC did that deliberately in a sense to try and capture them before Corrie. It was not going to happen. Angel DJ is saying back in the start, not everyone has a TV, plus the population was around 50 million. No videos, no mobiles, no internet, and only the 2 channels. Yeah, happy days. At least that's why you had to have the quality, which obviously isn't around anymore. So that's great. I know one person that's really looking forward, of course, to Battlefield not being down there at the bottom.
Right.
It's a matter of time. I swear to you, it's a matter of time. Right, so you've given us that one as well. The last graphic you gave us was this one. So do you just want to explain this was for us?
Yeah. So for those who haven't seen this one, this is the average viewers per season. Okay, so the line graph going all the way across down to 41 is season 1 in 1963 all the way through to where we're at now with season 14. It's at 41 because 7A and 7B, as you can see in the column on the left, was a split. But this also kind of reinforces your point, JT, of how as we were getting towards season 6, you can see that little drop off, and then it started to increase and increased even further when Tom comes in. And then we get, the highest point is conveniently, around, sort of that period where it's only the 2 channels. But then it drops off quite dramatically and then picks up again when Peter Davison comes in. So there's, as you were mentioning, that sort of initial interest, that burst of interest in a new Doctor. And then that continues. We mentioned the last time when we talked about this particular graph. You can see how that spike from series 10, which was Capaldi's last, was, that average 3.78 viewers. And then series 11, Jodie Whittaker's first, had 6.2. So that column on the left-hand side, you can see there's a clear initial interest in Jodie Whittaker, and then it drops off. So this does happen. What's rare this time, however, is that we've got a new Doctor and we haven't seen that spike of initial interest.
And we're not going to, because the big difference this time round is that he's only had 9 out by the end of this, in 9 outings, including Christmas Day. So there's no real opportunity for the new lead to actually, and he hasn't been in 2 of the episodes. And as somebody said in the chat, interesting, the highest episode so far has been the one he wasn't in. So absolutely, that's the one he should have been in, because if that's where the audience were going to come to go, I'll go and watch Doctor Who and see what this is about. That's the one. It should have been a cracking story with him leading all the way through it and actually trying to act in it properly and being given a good script, because that would have been the one where people go, I quite like this new Doctor. And they've mucked it up on every single level, haven't they?
Still have the essence of the Doctor in it. You know what I mean? I think casting somebody who's unavailable, I think, is really a bad choice, because he needs to be in it. That's the problem.
Yeah. So again, just
it's called Doctor Who for a reason.
Well, exactly. Yeah. It's not Doctor Where.
Yeah. So to reiterate the context, that line graph that JT put up is the overnight numbers. So the averages of people sitting down and watching on the night. And that's why we're getting series 14 averaging at 2.31.
Yeah.
Based on Rogue's number of 2.11. So,
and we do need to point out that this is very fair that you've done it this way, Bedweer, because we've got to point out again that back in 2005, 6 and 7, and I think even 8, the system was different, because all it did was looked at the overnights. Do you remember the fuss? If you're a certain age and you were there when Rose was aired back in March, 26th of March 2005, after we got over the shock of Grey and Norton making a cameo appearance, the papers the following day, 10 million, and we all went, didn't we, as Doctor Who fans? We all went, oh my God, we were having parties everywhere. It was a huge thing. So it's only fair that that's done, because that's how it was. That's how it looked. That's how it was monitored.
We had a That's in Earth shock, wasn't it? I think. Yeah.
So if you want to talk about, if you want, so the specific numbers for Rose when it came back, the overnight was 9.94, but then it only added 870,000 people over that 7 days. So again, iPlayer wasn't as strong as it is now, obviously, but it's still a good increase, and it got to 10.81 million. It didn't maintain that, and the whole of that first series averaged 7.3 million, which was still pretty good for the time, and it started to creep up a little bit, as you could see in that line graph when Tenant came in a little bit, but yeah, I mean, for that first show to get 9.9 million and then overall 10.8, so it was a big deal, and it was well advertised, and it clearly paid off.
Well, we've got a question for you here as well. First of all, Cybermat Strikes is making the point: 8-episode season should all be cracking scripts after a 2-year wait. Totally agree. And the Lady of Knightsbridge herself, Elizabeth, is joining us. Doesn't that last graph show Whittaker's Doctor was relatively popular, or am I missing something? Well, compared to now.
Well, that first series, if you want to put it back up again, JT. So if you look at the line graph that you had.
Oh, that. Sorry.
Yeah. So the raw numbers that you can see in that left column. So series 11, 6.2. That is an initial spike and a good increase from Peter Capaldi's last series, which was down at 3.78 as an average. So again, you're right in that there was that initial interest in Jodie Whittaker, but unfortunately it then tailed off quite dramatically. Unfortunately, that Flux series, was the lowest viewed on broadcast, and now we've dropped even lower than that.
Yeah, this is where
can I ask a request? See, when they go further and further down, can you put a little toilet in the corner? That's going down the toilet. That'd be lovely.
Terrible, isn't it? That's terrible. Yeah. We've got Lex here saying great work and research, Bedouin. I totally agree with that. Thank you so much as ever for that. And Richard is saying to us, can the panel watch The Keeper of Traken, please? A new body at last.
Oh, yeah, please, yes, that'd be lovely. Can we, GT? Can we?
Yeah, at some point. At some point, yes. At some point, we've done a lot of Tom this year, so it's time to look at some of the others now. As I say, we're going to be going to the Mighty Pertwee. We're going to be doing a Hartnell. I'd love to throw in a Trout at some point there, but yes, we will get to these sorts of things very, very, very soon. So stay with us. Lots of you in the chat. And if this is true, and we've done this as well, I am very superstitious. So I'm probably going to give it the kiss of death right now as well. I'm very superstitious, and I don't usually say anything about this. But thank you very much if you have subscribed.
Wow.
And if we have done that, and if we have over, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. Because if this is it, and it must be, I'm very suspicious. I'm not going to say it just in case any of you cancel and unsubscribe, because you never know what can happen these days.
Not to YouTube.
Yeah. Exactly. But thank you so much. We do appreciate it. And thank you so much, everybody, for all these little comments that are coming through here, guys. We've been too busy to actually looking at this, but
no, my end, I've just got spreadsheets up.
Yeah, yes, madam, yes. Libro Paradiso, thank you for subscribing. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, everybody, for doing that. Blown away by that, honestly. We've been going just over a year. So thank you so much, everybody, for taking the time to join us, because you make the shows as well. And it's got to the point, as I said last night on our review, I sit through this crap on a Saturday and I actually don't mind so much, because I know on the Sunday we're all going to get together and share our pain.
Yeah.
So thank you so much to everybody. I really, really mean that. We will celebrate later, to quote Captain Catherine Janeway. Do you remember that one in the last episode? I loved it when she said that. You didn't quite know what was going on. She said, we'll celebrate later. Oh, I'm getting tingles just thinking about it now. But yeah, that's great. Thank you. Really, really appreciate it. So let's get rid of that before the superstition comes in. Listen, amazing. Garbage is saying here, has Bedouin got a graph for the growth of figures for the channel subscriptions?
I'm sure he has.
I'm sure JT's got access to that.
And Mark is saying, well deserved. I look forward to your live streams on Doctor Who more than I actually enjoy Doctor Who. Thank you very, very much. Really appreciate it. Doug is saying, what are you saying here? Maybe, just maybe, we can find a Pertwee caliber actor and production team to revitalize Doctor Who, but not in my lifetime, I fear. That's the problem, isn't it? That's the problem. I mean, because show business, as we said earlier, and have said on many times on our show, it's a case of really, they have been infected by all this stuff, and they're so. I mean, show business is always, as a few of us will know from working in it, has always been liberal, but now it's extreme liberal. It's extreme, and you have to tick all these DEI tick boxes and stuff before you can even get a job now, can't you?
Yeah,
that's why I'm saying maybe it's time for Doctor Who to have a good rest while they sort themselves out, and possibly a new generation comes in that will kick them all out and start all over again with a bit of British common sense. Because the Doctor Who needs British common sense to make it work between you.
Someone said in the chat there about a Pertwee style actor. I think we had Capaldi and he was robbed. Completely robbed.
Oh God.
Yeah. Unfortunately, casting the Doctor is not enough. As you mentioned, Capaldi, needed slightly better material or more favorable.
But he was always good. He rose above the crap, which is good. So
yeah. Capaldi was good, but he didn't find the audience. Similarly, Whittaker, as we mentioned, generated enough interest, but then the material didn't maintain that audience.
Well, that's the. And also, personally, I would have had a stronger actor if you were going to make that such a big shift and then a big switch. But anyway, that's just me. DD is saying to us here, show business is a dirty business, but the length of the rest necessary means I will be gone before Doctor Who returns, if it ever does come back as well. That's the thing. I was thinking about this the other day, thinking, as I've said, there's no fan base there ready to support it and bring it back. And certain fans, like some of us, would say, yeah, bring it back with this, bring it back as the Doctor, and so that's problematic in itself as well, isn't it? Steve Hindley is saying someone like Mark Warren and new writers.
Wasn't Mark Warren considered at some point for the Doctor?
I was just thinking that, wasn't it? Wasn't it when Tennant left?
Yeah,
but was it in the running? Or was he in the running before Eccleston? I can't remember.
It was him or Paul Daniels. I can't remember which.
Stop it. Yeah. Matthew Bainton for the Doctor, says Matt 532. That's an interesting casting. I quite actually like to see what
is there an equivalent now to Paul Daniels in the zeitgeist of society now? Because when it comes back, could it become a joke again? Do you think there'll be the same kind of look, it's Paul Daniels type actor being the next Doctor after Ncuti or whoever?
I think it will, and I think it'll be, which drag queen can be the next Doctor?
Yeah.
Because
there was something that Ncuti said in an interview that got me, that he said that anyone can play the Doctor, anyone can be the Doctor, and I think it's a certain type of actor that can play the Doctor. I think you have to be a certain type to play it, or a strong actor to play it. And I don't think what Ncuti done in the past, like the character from Sex Education, whatever, he may be good in that, but he's not a good Doctor, in my opinion.
I know what you mean by that, and it's a case of I said it last night, didn't I? In one of my rants on last night's Who's Views reviews about Rogue. I look at this now, having decided, as the second miscast of a Doctor in history, in the show's history.
Can I also stress? I want to stress though that it's not because he's black. I don't care about that, or the fact that he's gay. I don't care about that.
He can't act.
He can't. Well, he can't play the Doctor. I'll say that. So.
Yeah, you have to be a certain character. You have to be able to be a certain style of actor, don't you? I mean, we all know as fans, don't we? Who viewers, we know what we're looking for when it comes to a Doctor. We were very lucky with the first four, especially, because they set the scene, they set the tone. Really, we were. I don't know. I'm going to go into. I don't want to go that. I don't want to be disrespectful to our original actors at all. But you know what I'm trying to say. There was a standard that was set, and I don't think they can actually, in this modern day, capture that, because we're getting too many people that claim to be actors, and they may have come from reality television, or they may have got a break because they're ticking a box. You know,
don't quote Mark Gatiss from the Doctor Who, right? Whatever you do. So
hello and welcome to the Peter Venkman fan site. I have to look that one up. Peter Venkman, there's a character, eh? What a classic. Anyway, they're like our new US caliber writers. I know what you're saying. Two of which wrote that crap that I had to go through the other night. You know, goodness me. Oh, but go back in for the full story on that. We'll go back and look at our review from only last night, actually. But thank you, everybody, for all your comments. Bedouia says, Kev, can I ask, the Hit List TV game show was in the Doctor Who slot. I wonder how many watched that then compared to Doctor Who. So, yeah, we did talk about the 1% thing on Friday, didn't we? The 1% show that's been going for a few series now. I'd never heard of it till that came up on our Friday show. But other shows are doing well, aren't they? Or okay. But the point is that they're doing better than Doctor Who.
Yeah, it's difficult. I might do a deep dive this week and see what the equivalent program in the same slot this time last year and what sort of numbers that was doing. I have looked sort of earlier this year because we had Gladiators on slightly earlier, and that was doing about 5.5 million.
That did very well. But can I just say to our Who viewers outside the UK, you'll know if you've been with us since January, we did report about that, as Bedouin says. It was a big hit here. It got really good ratings. You can go back and look at our shows from that. It's been commissioned for a Christmas special, as I said on one of our shows back at the beginning of the year. It's been commissioned for season 2 and series 3. It's been on a live tour. One of our Whotastic panel members, Phil, has seen it 74 times. He followed it around, stalker. So we've got that going. The merchandise is out. More to come on the merchandise. And I look at all this thing thinking that's where Doctor Who used to be. Sorry, but off you go.
I was going to say before you said it, will the figures be the same scale as the Doctor Who ones? Because you could have a kind of Gladiators Doctor Who crossover, couldn't you? Could you do that? Yeah.
Don't give them ideas. They could do that, couldn't they? Where Ncuti's Doctor's running around.
I was more so thinking about Bedouin and Phil playing with the Gladiator figures and the Doctor Who figures together, like Stephen Moffat in that 5-ish Doctors thing, yeah, but like that.
Yeah, and I don't forget, I've got my my Graham from the Jodie Whittaker era, so my Bradley.
Of course, yeah.
He actually admits this, Who viewers, as well.
Can you film that? That'd be fabulous to watch.
Yeah, as well.
Can I just say as well, David Gulvin, welcome to Who's Views. Thank you so much. Congrats. Your figures are going up because your show is insightful and entertaining. Thank you so much. I really, really, really appreciate that. And I know the guys do as well. But, what were you saying before I interrupted you, Bedouin, about Gladiators?
Yeah, so although Gladiators did well and was the BBC itself was promoting it as a good success story because it got over 5 million on these +7 values. It is difficult to make comparisons, however, because that is an earlier time of the year in the UK when the weather's quite naff. And this time of year the weather is slightly better, so more people are out and about, and there are less people watching television. So it's really difficult to make comparisons with other shows at different times of the year because the weather in the UK in particular plays a massive factor. That's why, as I mentioned, we'll probably have a look and see what was in that slot. I think you might be right in terms of it was the hit list this time last year, and see what sort of numbers that was doing.
Well, we'll soon find out because I reckon, as I've said, I reckon that we will see Ncuti's second series coming in January, directly after the Christmas special. And then we'll be able to make a comparison to say what's going on here. But I think it's too little, too late now. I think it's far too late. I don't think the British public, no matter what time of year this is going to be on, I don't think they're coming back now. I think they've got better things to do, like watching paint dry. Look at Richard here. Can I just say, Richard, who was the first miscast? Jodie Whittaker, of course, mate. Go on, sorry, Bedouin.
I'm just pulling up the numbers on the BARB's website for May of last year. And it's difficult because the first one I pulled up was the week of the coronation, so that was massive, and I've now found Eurovision Song Contest for last year as well. So I'm not getting
Eurovision actually did quite well for the BBC again this year, and it was the most controversial Eurovision ever. So that's going to be very, very interesting to see what the result of that is next year, because there was an awful lot of backlash because there were too many non-binary weirdos, quite frankly, in the Eurovision this year, clashing with each other, and too much politics, which is not what the Eurovision's all about. They actually destroyed it. I've got friends who are diehard fans of the Eurovision, disgusted. And a friend of mine was actually there because they go all the time. And he said to me, it wasn't the same this year. And you could feel the anger from certain quarters of the professionals taking part in the show, which had an effect, of course, on your just nonsense, isn't it? So I don't know, but it did quite well. Usual stuff there.
So to answer the original question, I've managed to find a number for the hit list, which was rightly, it was around about the same time slot. This particular week was the week of the 8th to the 14th of May 2023. And the hit list, which was on at 20 to 7, so 10 minutes before Doctor Who has largely been in this year, that actually only got 2.78 million. So if you wanted to add that context, it is an improvement over 7 days compared to what was in that slot this time last year.
There you go.
But I would suggest that that's largely because Doctor Who is a much better
fan base.
Well, not fan base, but people are more likely, if they've missed the original broadcast, are more likely to go and watch.
Yeah,
Doctor Who on
it's a drama rather than a light entertainment show, isn't it?
I don't have an overnight number for the hit list, but I imagine it would not be a million miles away from the 2.78 it got over 7 days.
Yeah,
I would suggest that Doctor Who is a much better iPlayer engagement than the hit list got, because if you missed an episode of the hit list, it wouldn't really matter too much.
Not really, but there you go.
Doctor Who is a bit different, so that's an interesting point. It is an increase based on that slot this time last year, but as we've seen today, 3.38 million compared to that number is only about 500,000 on the hit list.
Still, with that figure though, we are seeing, whether you like it or not, there's a problem. There's a problem with Doctor Who. They have to open up. They have to be honest about this. They shouldn't be spinning this. They should be sitting down now and saying, oops, we've just gone and filmed the second series, which I actually warned about a couple of years ago. I seem to remember saying that's a big grave error of judgment. It's a big risk. Turns out
they don't have a chance to recalibrate, do they? That's the problem. So
no, but again, it was so assumptive of that production team and that particular showrunner to say, I'm doing it this way. I'm doing it this way, and nothing else matters. And now it's come back to bite them on the arse. And that's the reason why I've got no sympathy for them, really. No sympathy at all. So let's see what's carrying on. Listen, everybody, we're coming to the end of the show. I want to thank Badouia for all his hard work putting these things together. He is going to be back, of course, to talk about the ratings with his wonderful ratings breakdown analysis. So thank you for that, mate. Really appreciate it. Thanks to Paul for joining us as well. Another great headlines here. And again, thank you to everybody watching us. Thank you for everybody in the chat. You've been very busy tonight as ever. Some great points, some wonderful questions. Really, really appreciate it all. And again, from us, thank you very much for subscribing to Who's Views. We will celebrate later. We'll get a few more and then we'll celebrate later, because that's how superstitious I am. We will be back, however, very soon with another headlines for you, because there's lots to talk about. So make sure you are subscribed. Make sure you've rung the bell to get notifications. If you've already subscribed to the channel, please make sure you're still subscribed, because we are getting notifications from Who viewers that they subscribed and then they're being unsubscribed. We're getting notifications from Who viewers that they put a comment down under one of the videos and then it disappears. Nothing to do with me. I do not edit anything there at all. So I don't know what that's about. It's just a funny platform sometimes, isn't it? So make sure you're there with us. And keep an eye out, because we'll be back very shortly with another headlines for you. Lots more gossip and scandal. And that's just us, not just the program, but them as well. Guys, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of the night, or a great day if you're outside the UK and you're just starting your day or in the middle of your day. Thank you for joining us. We will see you again very soon, won't we, guys? Thank you, everybody.
Yes, bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.